can see right through. You're holding your secrets for way too long. This can't keep going on. With every lie, they keep on hurting you, getting away with everything they do. This can't keep going on. No, we're gonna fight, and I'm gonna fight for you. They better start hiding. We've been running with the lions, lions. We've been running with the lions, lions. They can't run, they can't hide. We won't stop until they're down. We've been running with the lions, lions.
Hello, everyone, and happy Sunday. Welcome to another episode of Gloves Off. I'm your host, Dr. Kalpana Sundar, and I cannot believe that it is July already. I mean, where is this year going? But I have to say that I'm always excited to introduce our guests every week because I have to say, well, and not to be braggy, but I feel like I know the most awesome people. So this week, I'm really excited to interview Angie Giltner. She was the one who introduced me to Colleen Biggs. I interviewed her a few weeks ago, so you can always check out that interview on my YouTube channel. But basically what's been happening for me is that I have had such the remarkable pleasure of meeting all of these amazing women. And it's so great to connect with women like this who are all doing their unique things, but really giving back to our society, which is something that I'm really big on. So for those of you who have been tuning in every week to Gloves Off, welcome back. And for those of you who are new, I just want to tell you a little bit about the show. So Gloves Off is a show that's about people who show up authentically in the world to really do something courageous, because it is an act of courage to show up authentically without the mask of the ego. So that's really what the show is about. So every week I have a guest who is displaying that in their own unique way. So before we get into our show today, as always, I want to thank my sponsor, Elevated CPA, for continuing to sponsor the show. Again, whenever it's tax time, if you have a small business, you may want to consider getting an accountant. They make your life easier. All right. Again, every time I hear that music, I feel like it makes taxes sound fun, but I don't think they are. But anyway, I am so excited to welcome Angie Giltner to the show. Hello, Angie. Welcome to Gloves Off.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. I've been so excited to get you on the show. For whatever reason, it took us a long time to get you on here.
Busy schedules.
Yes, yeah. So I told the audience a little bit about you, but I think I have to make a point of bringing less accomplished people on the show, just because it will make it a lot easier for me to introduce everybody. But every one of my guests has like 25 things that they've done, and I'm like, oh my God, this is a lot. But I will say the things that I do know about you, and then I will have you expand for the audience. So obviously you're an author, you're a business coach, you have your own podcast, and it's called The Girl with Purple Hair Talks Business. And I was on that podcast. And also you also have you're also involved in a magazine, and your company called, and now I'm going to say it wrong, I just forgot how to say it, FEMETIS?
FEMETIS.
FEMETIS. I was like, I know I was going to say it wrong. I just had it and it was gone. So I want you to explain to the audience in your own words what, out of all the things you do, I mean, you have many accomplishments. What are the things that light you up? And just kind of tell us a little bit about the highlights of everything that you do.
Yeah. So once again, I'm Angie Giltner. I am a master business coach. And the things that light me up are being able to turn things around for female founders who are really struggling with revenue in their businesses. We have a hard enough time when it comes to things like dealing with the glass ceiling and the wage disparities and different things. I mean, we already have enough problems when it comes to making money. And it shouldn't be that way when we decide that we're going to change everything, turn everything upside down, and venture out into entrepreneurship. And yet so many female founders find themselves in the situation where they're struggling to find the revenue that they desire and that they deserve. And so what lights me up more than anything is for me to show them how they can increase their influence, their impact, so that they can increase their income and make a big difference in the world and be leaders of women. That's the other thing that is just I'm so passionate about, is stepping up and being a role model, and then and having other women also step up and be role models and leader for women.
I love that. I love that. And again, I think this is why we connected. That's why Colleen was such a great addition. Like, we're doing so many, I would say similar-ish things, but everybody has like different area in which they are helping women move forward. And I love that. So where did this passion to help women come from for you?
Well, early days, I mean, I think back to in my teenage years, I've always sort of been like this champion for girls and women. And throughout my career, I have just found myself in situations where I had the opportunity to step up as a leader for women, and in organizations, even when I worked for other organizations, I would go and say, what about a women in leadership program? Or what about doing something that's specific for women within the organization? And this goes clear back into the 80s and the 90s. And so I've just been such a champion for women. And I figure, God gave me this, I will say, big mouth, loud voice. And so I wanted to use it for good. And one of the ways I can use it for good is to just be a champion for women, and hopefully be a trailblazer so that other women can come in behind me and do the same for next generations.
I love that. I love that. So growing up, did you find that as a woman speaking up about these issues, was it easy for you? Was it not so easy for you? What was your feeling at that time?
Yeah, well, sometimes it wasn't easy, but I did it anyways.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say, I mean, I was raised predominantly by my father, but he supported me in that. He was like, you know what? You're doing good in the world, and people need to hear your voice. And so he always encouraged me to use my voice for good. But there were times when I did bump up against some resistance, and I'll share a quick story. I was actually working for an organization, and I had been there for 10 years, and created the program that I was running, and I was onboarding a new hire. And I found out that the CEO offered this young man fresh out of college with no experience, which I was there once too. So that wasn't the issue. The issue was he offered him $3,000 a year more than I was making as the program manager, the creator of the program. And I had 10 years of experience with that organization. I had 18 years of experience in the field. And I went to the CEO and I said, I would like to tell the audience that I was polite and professional. That would be a lie.
Well, good. You took your gloves off and let him have it.
I took my gloves off, and I was not professional or polite. And I said, I am totally not okay with this. I'm not okay with this on any level. And he looked me dead square in the face and said, that's all you're worth. And I said, okay. So I quit and I literally walked out. I have never done that before. And 4 days later is when I started my business, because I was determined no one was ever going to tell me that's all you're worth ever, ever again.
Oh, I love that story because, the thing is that when you're not the only woman who has faced this issue. We face it all the time.
All the time.
I have a similar story that when I was first out of residency, or actually I was finishing up residency, I was applying. And that was the reason I went into my own practice, because I had interviewed at multiple practices. Many of them, I just didn't even like the way the practice was run because I could tell the employees were miserable. So right there, I just didn't want to be in that environment. But finally, I came across a practice that I was like, okay, this seems okay. Do you know that when I finally got the offer letter, it was so low and so ridiculous that I saw that guy after the interview drive off in a Porsche that was worth more than what he was offering to pay me. And again, I know that I was new, but I know what the going salary for an ENT surgeon is. And that wasn't even anywhere in the ballpark. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to go out. I'm going to do it myself. I'll create the environment that I like, and I will make sure that I get paid what I'm worth. Well, that first year in practice, I quadrupled what they were wanting to pay me.
Yes. Take those gloves off and fight. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, and I would say that this is becoming an epidemic of women leaving the corporate workspace, which, could be good, could be bad, based on how you look at it. I think it's great because we have more women as entrepreneurs, and I feel from there, they take more leadership roles. And, my ultimate goal, like you, is to see more women in leadership positions. I'm actually giving a talk about this soon, why women should run more businesses and nations.
Yes.
We have some amazing skill sets, and they're not being recognized, and they need to be. The patriarchy, it's about time that it should just kind of fizzle out.
Yes. Dismantle.
I was trying to choose a nice word for what I wanted to say. And again, so often when you say things like this, the reaction is, oh my God, you hate men, blah, blah, blah. No, gloves off was a concept partially about what I said before about, really having people who have the courage to show up authentically. But the second portion of it is that men and women need to take their gloves off and understand each other better, because really to create the most effective kind of world to live in, we need a balance of masculine and feminine energies, but healthy masculine and healthy feminine energies.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
So that's really, I think, all of us who are speaking about this, that's really essentially what we want to create. And often it gets mistaken for us, hating men or being radical feminists or whatever the case may be, but that's not the truth. It's not what we're after.
No, absolutely not. I use this phrase all the time. It's like, I don't want to take over the table. I just want to sit at the table. I'm not trying to flip it on its head. I'm not trying to clear the table and make way, for women only. I just want a seat, and because we are equals, and still, there's this disparity when it comes to the wage gap and even how women are pricing themselves compared to their male competitors out
Mhm.
in the market. And it saddens me that oftentimes women think they need to lower their prices in order to compete. And I contend that that's not the right strategy to go about that.
So why do you think that women devalue themselves so much? What is your take on that?
Well, I think there's a mindset that if I keep lowering my price, people will buy, and they think that why they're not buying is solely based on the price. So if I lower my price enough, then people will buy. When it could be that something that's confusing with the offer, it could be that that perhaps they are unclear on the problem that they solve. And I mean, it just could be a myriad of things. It could be that they are marketing to the wrong market, where if they would spend their efforts marketing to a different audience, the outcome will likely be different. And so there's just a whole myriad of things. But I think the go-to is, oh, just let me lower my price and then people will buy.
Right. And that's not what happens. So unfortunately, what happens in that situation is women devalue not only themselves. I think the biggest problem with that is number one, by dropping the price, you devalue yourself in your mind. Number one, bad thing. The second bad thing that happens is you've now devalued yourself in the mind of your employer or anybody who wants to do business with you. And not that price is the only issue. It's just that I feel that people should be paid fairly, and we should actually differentiate ourselves on our unique qualities, not on price. And frankly, the people who are always looking for price, they're the worst people to work with. Absolutely the worst.
Right, right. They're going to be the ones that will call you at 2 o'clock in the morning and expect you to answer, right?
100%. So price is never the one that you want to be competitive on. And I see this in businesses too. The minute you start competing on price, you're just driving the price down, you're driving the profits down, and it's really like business suicide, this way I think about it.
Yes. My best advice to anyone, if you have ever thought about lowering your price, no more discounts, no more of that. If you really want to do something because you really feel like it's absolutely necessary, increase the value. Keep
Mhm.
your price the same, but add a layer of value. If you really feel like you must do something, do that. Then at least you're not devaluing yourself.
100%. I would agree with that totally. And I think that's such great advice for all of those listeners out there who may be, in their own businesses or contemplating being in their own businesses. And then, so what are the common things that you see in your coaching practice? I mean, what are the things that people come to talk to you about or need your coaching for?
Well, a lot of times they are very unclear about the problem that they solve. And I know that might sound strange, but they will go out and they will create an entire program. And my question is, well, what problem are you solving? And they're like, well, I don't know. I want women's mindset to improve. Okay, well, but what problem does that solve? And so they really don't understand the problem that they solve. And so this leads us down this conversation of getting very clear on that's the number one thing you need to do. Now, there are lots of sources out there that will tell you you need to identify your niche first. And I go up against that all day long. I go and say the number one thing you need to understand is the problem you solve. Because if you don't understand the problem you solve, there's no way you can convey that to your market. So you're already behind the eight ball whenever it comes to any marketing efforts or getting people to buy from you.
I would definitely agree with that because honestly, if you don't know what problem you're solving, how do you even know how to identify your niche? I mean,
Yes,
it just
right.
doesn't ever make sense. And frankly, this is one thing I wanted to talk to you about is that it isn't always that obvious in the beginning what problem you're solving. It is. So case in point from my own personal story, obviously, as I left medicine, I knew the things that I enjoyed helping people with. But I can tell you that it has changed. And I don't want to say changed. I would say that it's probably tweaked, gotten more clear as I uncover layers of me that really identify what it is that I enjoy helping people with. So case in point, and you probably have dealt with this with your, as have I, they'll start in one place, they just know they want to do X, and then they go down the road, and often Z looks very similar to X, but it's really dialed in. Would you
Yes,
say that this is your experience as well?
absolutely. Absolutely. Clarity is such an important piece of business that often gets, and mindset and clarity are often interchanged, and they're not. They're two completely different things.
Mm-hmm.
And clarity is often a piece that doesn't really get addressed, or a lot of assumptions are made and they're considered clarity. And so I really work hard to not let that happen, because that's, once again, you're already going to be behind when it comes to marketing and attracting your people who need your product or service.
Right. Because when you're talking specifically to that person that needs your help, it's kind of a no-brainer. Like they'll either look at that, what you've got to offer, and say, yeah, that's for me, or it's not for me. But when it's so vague, it's too vague. It's like you're throwing this big net out there and hoping for somebody to fall into it, as opposed to, fishing with something, a specific bait for a specific fish. I don't know. I'm not even a fisherman, but I feel like that's a good analogy.
It's a great analogy.
I don't know why I'm coming up with fishing analogies, but here you go.
I love it.
But you have to be specific. And, in the beginning, I think it's okay for us to just get started. I mean, that's the other thing that I see people struggle with. I just say, get started, because you know what? You can tweak it. We can navigate what's working and what's not. But sometimes that clarity and that specificity doesn't come in the very beginning as well.
Right. And yeah, and sometimes it takes us working through some things before it is revealed.
Mhm.
And now, working with a coach such as yourself or myself can speed that process up, but it can happen. But there also, what comes with it is a lot of frustration, a lot of overwhelm, a lot of
Mhm.
imposter syndrome, a lot of why, I don't understand why, you know.
It is so true. And I wish that I had a coach when I was starting my businesses, because there were so many things that I didn't know. And then you get so overwhelmed with all these things that you don't know how to do, that it really takes away from what you do well. And that's really, really important, because people don't realize that we tend to think our best resource and our most important resource is our money. So I think that people have it backwards. They're like, I don't want to pay a coach because, whoa, it's going to cost money. And all right, now I'm trying to start a business and I don't have money. Well, I would say just like my accountant saves me more every year than I wind up paying him. And I would say that I feel the same is true for a coach. If I didn't make, I don't even know how much money I've spent in mistakes, lots,
Oh
and
my
time and stress and heartache. And, if you wrap all that into all together in a big ball, it's probably, I don't even know how much it would be, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I'm not kidding.
God.
So if you can eliminate those hundreds of thousands of dollars of mistakes and problems, you
Yes.
are now streamlined to get to the place where you're doing your thing to the best of your ability, without all that noise in the background that
Yeah.
takes you away from the thing you went into the business for.
Right. And you don't have the sleepless nights. You don't have those moments of, ah, you can avoid all of that. You
Yes.
don't have to sit in frustration or confusion or overwhelm or analysis paralysis or imposter syndrome and all the other things.
Oh yeah.
You don't have to. That's the
Right.
beauty of it.
Somebody once told me that entrepreneurship is like 10% of awesomeness and 90% of shit. And I think that's not really untrue. And it's just, but the thing is, I don't think it has to be true. I think if you can navigate that 90% of stuff that is difficult, it's like shit because you don't know how to navigate it. But if you actually knew, it wouldn't be so terrible. So, I think those are really important lessons. I mean, these are the lessons that I've learned over my years.
Yes, yes. And I would contend too, like I've been in business 11 years and I've made my fair mistakes the hard way.
Hmm.
And in retrospect, looking back, it's like, oh, this is where a coach would have been come in handy. And so now, as a coach, I will never not have one. I always have a coach.
Hmm.
Now, because I've been in business so long, they are very specific, high
Hmm.
level, and help me focus literally on one thing and one thing only. Because it's like, this is my priority right now. This is what I need to learn. And that's what I'm paying you for, is that high level.
Right.
But having a general coach when you're first starting off it just makes such a world of difference and saves the heartache, you said, the time, the energy, the resource, all the things.
Yes, absolutely. So I would say that one of the other big skills when you're running a business is going to be resilience. I would say that's huge. So what is it that in your life gave you the resilience?
Well, so the good Lord has a great sense of humor, and I am living proof of that. So I was born with a congenital Achilles tendon issue that wasn't diagnosed until I was 36 years old. It was growing up, it was you have bad feet and ankles. You have bad feet and ankles, right? Because I was in the 70s and they didn't do all the testing and the things. And so it was just I had bad feet and ankles. But my dad would always challenge me and say, you're going to let that stop you? You're going to let this obstacle get in the way of what you want and what you want to do? He's like, I don't think so. I didn't raise you like that. And so from the time I can ever, my earliest memories of him, even at 3 and 4 years old, are of him challenging me. And my maiden name was Gosser. And he'd say, you're Angie Gosser. You're going to let that stop you? I don't think so. I didn't raise you like that. And so he would push me and he would challenge me. And so I just had that gift of being able to, whenever times got tough, I would say, you're Angie Gosser. No, like the mountain, you need to move because I'm coming through, or I'm going to plow you over, one or the other. It's your choice.
Basically, his mantra became your mantra that you used, and you
Yes.
sort of stayed on it by yourself. That's awesome.
And it's like on my cape now, And so
I love it.
anytime I'm faced with something, I hear my dad's voice in my head just telling me over and over again. And I'll be like, no, this is getting taken care of.
I love that. I love that. So I've heard you talk a lot about your dad. Was your mom in the picture when you grew up, or?
She was, but not a positive influence. I'll say that.
Okay. So it's interesting because, a lot of times we talk about people with daddy issues and this and that. And, it sounds like your dad was such a positive figure. I don't know if he's still alive or.
Yes.
Oh, perfect. So, I mean, so he's clearly a very positive influence in your life. And our fathers can really, either be a very positive or very negative influence in a woman's life. And it's huge. So I just love that he was there telling you these things when you might have wanted to give up. And it's huge. My father used to tell me, and it's great because I still remember this. He'd say, not every man is like me. Don't expect that there'll be a man to take care of you like I take care of my family. And, that was really good advice because, back when I was growing up, I grew up in some sort of a bubble. My parents were married for 55 years until my mom recently passed away. So literally till death did them part. But it is not common. And so I didn't understand all this other stuff that was going on, but it was very good advice because in that moment I said, well, I'm going to make sure I get an education. I'm going to make sure I can take care of myself and my family so I'll never be in that position. So I think, these are really important life lessons that our parents teach us.
Yes. And I look at it too. I mean, now my dad, when he listens to this, and he's going to laugh when I say this, because he's going to be like, I taught you a lot of other lessons that you chose not to listen to.
Oh, okay. Now do tell. What are the other lessons that he taught you? Because now we got to do this. We got to do this with that. Or he's going to be upset with me. I don't want him calling me.
So, because, because I definitely have a very strong mind of my own. And there has been times throughout my entrepreneurial journey where he was like, when times were tough or I was being challenged or, I was having a hard time coming up with the right solution for the problem that I was facing. And he would be like, well, maybe now is the time to go back to corporate America. And I'm like, are you nuts? Like, do you want me to be miserable? Like, I want you to still love me and like me and want to be around me. You make me go back to corporate America. That will not happen. I guarantee you that.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
So,
So let's talk a little bit about what is so. I have to ask you about the podcast name because it's just fun. So why did you decide to name? And why is your hair not purple anymore? I mean, what in the world?
Well, so it's very faded purple. I actually have a hair appointment next week.
Okay,
but it's normally
coming back.
Yeah, it's normally very, very purple, but it's very faded because it needs done.
Okay.
But I've had purple hair for about 12 years now. It's been my favorite color since I can ever possibly imagine. It is my school alma mater's color, my high school, and I'm on school board now. I'm real involved. I still volunteer and do things at my high school alma mater. And it's the color of my business. And there's so much if you study colors at all, like purple.
It's one of my favorite colors too. So,
there's just so many powerful meanings behind the word color purple.
Yes.
And when I was coming up, I was trying to play around with names for my podcast. And actually, it was my husband who came up with the name. And at first, I'm being honest, I didn't like it. I was like, John, I don't know. The girl with the purple hair talks business. And I played around with a few other things and I didn't like any of those. And so he had done kind of a mock-up of a logo for my podcast. And when I saw it in writing and I saw the kind of mock-up, I was like, I think this is the name of my podcast.
That's awesome. I love it because it's really not easy to step outside of your comfort zone. And even like 12 years ago, it was even harder to have purple hair. It's definitely way more acceptable now. But 12 years ago, it was hard. So what was that like? Did you get any resistance? How did people react when you first did it?
Well, I live in Amish country, so you can about imagine. The Amish have sometimes, and not even kidding, they've crossed the street when they've seen me because I have a big personality. I'm big in stature. I have crazy purple hair, and so they look at me and like a little, but what's interesting is I can walk in my downtown and there'll be like, there's that girl with the purple hair. And my husband will joke that my hair is more famous than I am because people know my hair. And we'll be out to dinner and you'll hear whispers and say, there's that girl with the purple hair. They don't know my name, but they know my hair. So it's hilarious.
Your husband really did a great job of choosing the name for the podcast for sure. But, it's funny because we tend to feel like we have to fit in, we have to conform, we should be like everybody else. And our uniqueness is our superpower. And I think more and more women are starting to realize this, that whatever makes them unique is not an adverse situation. Conforming is the adversity. But whatever makes you unique is really what's going to have you stand out.
Yes.
And it's funny because, for me, one of the things that people are always surprised about is that I'm small. So I'm 5'1" and I'm a small statured person. And yet this voice comes out and they're like, I didn't expect that. And I'm like, yeah, I may look small, but don't mess with me.
I love it. That's amazing.
That's the thing. I've learned to embrace it. I used to sometimes feel embarrassed that I didn't have this like more. I mean, at the time, I was associating a feminine voice with something more high pitched, and I just wanted to have that. And then I realized, well, whoa, this is my superpower. People always know it's my voice, and people always recognize my voice. So I'm like, well, this is my uniqueness. That this little person has a very big voice.
That should be celebrated in a big, massive way. I love that.
Yes, well, again, when I was growing up, I didn't. I unfortunately, when I grew up, this whole being unique and being all of that was not embraced. So I really was supposed to, I grew up in an Indian household, so everything was about fitting in, doing what the Indian culture wanted, blah, blah, blah. And then here I am, like ultra rebel, and I didn't want to do any of those things. So here I am, and it's fine. It all worked out okay. I think now even my dad is accepting that I'm not going to do things the way he'd like. Taking years to get that. Whatever. It is what it is.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we all have something that is very unique about us. And, for me, the other thing is I think people also expect that I'm going to be doing certain like ultra feminine things. And I do those things. So I like those things, but then I like to drive race cars and do martial arts. And, who came up with this idea that women have to do feminine things and men have to do masculine things? I mean, again, I think the world is changing so much. These things just need to be integrated into our society. Whatever a human being wants to do, whether it be deemed masculine or feminine, should be okay as long as it's authentic to them.
Yes. And I can tell you in our household, we do a lot of role reversals. And I'm not talking about, like in the bedroom. I'm talking about like my husband does all of the cooking, and I do all of the yard work, and so those are more traditionally more, cooking is more feminine, yard work's more masculine. No, he loves to cook. I don't. I love yard work. He doesn't. So it's like, who cares, And I actually had a neighbor one time. He came up to me, and he's an elderly man, and he said, he's like, "Would you like some help with that?" And I said, "No." I said, "I appreciate you offering, but I've got it." And he said, "Your husband should be out here helping you." And I said, "Actually, no, he shouldn't. I love doing this. I want to be doing this, and I enjoy doing this. So he's fine doing whatever it is that he's doing."
You should have said, "My husband's inside cooking me dinner."
That's what I should have said. He might have fallen over.
My husband's inside wearing an apron cooking dinner. He would have lost it.
He might have literally had the big one.
Yes. Well, it's so true, because personally, I know that I have to find a partner that cooks, because I don't like it. I mean, I will cook just enough to sustain myself. And even then, sometimes it's questionable. And I can cook. I just don't enjoy it. So it's nothing I want to do. And I'm like, high on my list of qualities is a man that can cook.
Oh, yes, it is great. I'll do the dishes. I don't care about that, but I don't want to cook. Ugh.
Well, I would say that I actually like cooking sometimes. So, what's so beautiful when two people can cook is that for me, I actually want a household where both people can cook. So I have my things that I enjoy making and cooking, and, they would have their things that they enjoy making and cooking, and there would be so much more diversity, except the things that I just make, which I'm kind of getting back from. I have a limited repertoire in the kitchen. That's all right. We cannot be masters of everything. So I just decided that I'm going to stay grounded in the things that I'm really good at. And cooking, it's good. I can make healthy things. It doesn't have to be chef quality. That's fine.
Yes. I love it.
So I actually didn't realize you lived in Amish country. So what got you into that area?
Born and raised.
Wow. So
Born
this is really like, whoa. Angie, growing up in Amish.
Born and raised. And I come from an apostolic family. And so I have tattoos, and of course my hair, in the apostolic faith, women don't cut their hair. They wear a prayer cap. They wear dresses all the time. No makeup or anything. And I just jokingly say my family just prays for me because I don't fit the mold. And, and but once again, my dad, he supported that. I mean, I had some, man, I grew up in the neon days and I had some crazy things happening. And only one time did he say, okay, I can go along with a lot of things, but you have crossed the line. You are not wearing that, because it was just way too much. But only once in my life. But other than that, he's embraced and let me, like, oh, that's just Angie doing her thing. So,
It is so great. I mean, you really, I feel like you won the parental lottery
I
with that
did.
whole situation, because most, even parents who are pretty open-minded, I would say that they're only open-minded to a point. So all the things that you're doing going against the whole grain of your culture and how things are supposed to be. I mean, everything they want you to do, you didn't do.
I think I wore him down. I was the firstborn, and I just broke him down so much as a kid that he was like, "Oh, I'm tired." Okay, no, I don't know. I'm just
That's
kidding.
funny. So about your husband, again, I would say that those are the two things that are typically very hard for a woman to be herself in a relationship with her parents or her father, whatever that case may be, and with the spouse. A lot of women feel like, and I did this when I got married, it's partially, I feel like that's why it didn't work out, because I was wearing a mask. I'm not going to attract somebody who's truly right for me. But then again, I was very young and I didn't know who I was. So how did you avoid falling into that trap?
Yeah, I waited a long time to get married. I was 3 weeks away from being 31. And I waited for a long time to get married, and I never had a roommate. I moved out when I was 17. I never had a roommate until I moved in with my husband. Well, when we were engaged, did move in together. We lived in sin for a little bit.
Oh my goodness. Wait till the Amish people find this
I
out.
know they
I feel like I have this checklist of all the things that Angie's done wrong. And now we can add that to the list.
exactly. And so I just waited because I needed to find out, like, who I was and be confident in who I was. But then I also needed to find a man who accepted all of me for me, like flaws and all, big personality and all, and not someone who was going to try to dim my light. And so luckily, God put John in my path, and here we are 22 years later. But um, and he accepts me for me. Matter of fact, when my hair's faded like it is, he's like, "Don't you have a hair appointment coming up?" Because he likes the purple hair, and so I mean,
I
so
love
he'll point
it.
out it's getting to be about that time.
That's so cute. And really, for all of you ladies who are watching, I mean, to me, those words are words that are like gold. Because if we feel like we have to dim our lights to please other people, and if we have to be a smaller version of ourselves, it's probably not going to work out. And just because of the way I grew up, I already kind of grew up thinking I was too much. So I was like, oh, it's either being really alone in my life, because I already just felt like my parents, like I was already too much for my whole family. So I was like, whoa, if I'm too much, like I'm going to be alone. And that really, frankly, scared the crap out of me. So when I got married, I was married very young, and my ex and I were together since we were 21. I don't know that I was actively trying to not be myself. I just didn't know who that was yet. And of course, over the 20 something years we were together, I figured that out, and I started to become bolder, bigger. Then I noticed that was, it's hard because it's a shift in the dynamic. That's all I can say. When that dynamic shifts from something people are used to and something people are not used to, they're like, whoa, what's happening? And then, after that, I actually got into another relationship where I kind of did the same thing. I didn't dim my light in some ways, not in the entrepreneurial ways and all that, some things, but then I did dim it in other ways, like my vulnerability and all these other things. I just didn't let those things show. And that was when I said, I really need to take some time and really get to know me, because I was just not alone very much. I always had roommates. I went from having roommates to being married. And then I was really only divorced like a couple of years before I was in a new relationship. So I just didn't have the time to self-reflect. I would say now I really know who I am. Oops, I was banging things. But I really know who I am. And it allows for a better, deeper, authentic connection, because I'm not going to compromise who I am now for the sake of it. I'm not going to people please. I'm not going to keep my mouth shut because I want to keep the peace. I did all of those things. I mean, regret it, but I did those things. Now, and the other thing too is that me and my Scorpio traits, like I was always stinging people when I got upset. So one thing that I've really learned is to express what I don't like in a very healthy, calm way. And I would say that's huge. But again, a lot of this was just me not understanding how to be a better human being. I mean, I just was young and just did my thing the way I did it, and you just get into these patterns. So time alone is super, super important.
Yes, yes, absolutely. But I'm glad that you are shining bright now.
Yes, I'm shining bright now. And that's the thing. So it's interesting because we say this, but it's not without consequences. I mean, you are very fortunate to find your husband young, but I don't know. We have a lot of wounded men out there who, if you shine too brightly, they really run away. So now that's my litmus test. So now I say to myself, if you're scared, great. I ruled you out very quickly. So I don't put on any airs. I'm like, if I'm going to scare you to death, I'm going to do it fast. That's my goal.
Good for you. Good for
And
you.
I'm trying to, but I'm not gonna dim myself down to make myself much more appealing. And what's the point of that? It's a waste of time.
Yep,
So,
absolutely.
so basically, our take-home message for our women out there is to shine as brightly, and frankly, not just women. Men should too. I know a lot of men who also dim themselves down for the sake of a relationship. This isn't just a primary woman problem. This is a societal problem. And I just think that probably more women succumb to it than men. I could be wrong about that, but I've seen many men do it.
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely, yes. And I mean, one of the things John and I always try to do, he's my biggest cheerleader, but then I'm his biggest cheerleader. And he's a teacher, and he gets recognized by his students all the time because they love Johnny G. That's what the kids call him. And he's always get invited to things when students are picking like who their favorite teacher is, he's always up there. And so I want his light to shine. I want him to, like be bright all the time. And so I think that's part of what makes us work as well.
That's great. So what do the students love about him? Because it's hard to find good teachers that make you enjoy school. So I'm curious.
Well, his sense of humor, for one, and he's a big kid. But one of the things that I have consistently heard the kids say, especially to the young men, is that he listens. And so, I think, and I don't want to stereotype, but I think so many times students are used to, especially male students, are used to the female teachers listening and not so much the male teachers listening, but he really listens. And so kids have opened up and shared a lot of things with him and gone to him for guidance and support and how would you handle this kind of things. And I think that makes a big difference. But he treats every kid, it doesn't matter, with dignity and respect, as they should, and he also will stand up for kids. If he sees something in the hallway, he is quick to say, that's not okay, we're going to fix this. And the kids really, really respect that about him.
That is so wonderful, because I remember growing up, there were not many teachers. I mean, I would say that your husband sounds like a teacher that these children will remember for the rest of their lives.
Yes.
And there are not that many of those, I mean, if you're in, what grade does he teach?
He teaches all high school.
Oh, high school. Okay. So, I mean, but even so, how many high school teachers do? I mean, there are very few that I remember at this point. So it's like, if you actually remember a teacher, 20, 30, 40 years later, they really had a significant impact on your life, which is huge.
Yeah.
And again, it even really sounds like your husband has embraced a lot of his, what came as feminine qualities, maybe, of the ability to listen and understand and all of those things, so that it just makes him an overall inspiration, it sounds like, to those children.
Yeah. Yeah.
And actually, I think it models that same behavior. Some of these other children start to utilize those behaviors in their life. I think, that would be a really wonderful thing as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. And we get invited to all the graduation. We just came off of graduation season and the countless graduation parties, but I wouldn't trade it though, because it just emphasizes how much he has meant to these kids, that they want him to come and celebrate on their big special day. I said, I'm going to be anxious to see how many weddings we start to get invited to.
Yes. Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Now I want to talk a little bit about your company too. So tell us about your company, why you started it, and a couple of those things. I was like, we got into such conversation, and I was like, oh my goodness, we have to touch on that. So take it away.
So over the last 11 years, I've really gone through a metamorphosis and change, like many entrepreneurs do. And I remain a master business coach for female founders. But within the last 3 years, I have met up with two amazing women, Samantha Morris from Melbourne, Australia, and Stephanie Gray from Milliken, Colorado. And we have joined forces to create a movement. And because we are all so passionate about forwarding female entrepreneurship and helping women to truly earn their worth and increase their income, influence, and impact. And so we decided to join forces and create FEMETIS. And how we got the name is Matisse was Zeus's one of his wives. And she is known for being a wise counsel. She's actually the goddess of wise counsel. And Zeus didn't like that very much, so he ate her. So there's that piece of it. But we decided to put a little spin on it and put FEMETIS and create this movement where we are out there working with female founders from all over the world and showing them how to identify the problem they solve, create an irresistible offer, and earn their worth.
I love that. I love that. And I was actually very curious about the origin of the name. I figured there was something behind it, but I wasn't sure what it was. So thank you for explaining that. And it really is important for women to really start getting what they're worth. And I've got the website down there below flashing so that anybody who would like to check out Angie's company and all the amazing things that they're doing can check it out. And so also I want to talk about your trip. You have an upcoming trip to Bali, right?
Yes, Bali and Australia. So I am going to Bali on a coach's retreat. And this time I am going to be learning.
Wow.
So Kate DeYoung she's one of the top business coaches for women out in the world, and she's hosting this retreat in Bali. And so I get the honor and privilege of learning from her and all the other amazing women who are going to be attending this retreat. And then from there, I'm going to Melbourne, Australia, which is where Sam Morris is from, one of the co-founders of FEMETIS, and spend some time with her. And yes, it's just going to be a trip of a lifetime. I'm super excited to go.
Oh my God, it sounds absolutely amazing. I can't wait to hear about it when you get back. I've never actually been to Australia, so that's on my bucket list. And have you been before, or this is your first time?
First time. Yeah.
And also to Bali, your first time?
First time to Bali as well.
Wow. Well, that's pretty amazing. So have you, is this retreat that you're going to, is it pretty much every year or?
It is. It's a yearly retreat, and it's called Inspired Business. And so, yep, every year Kate hosts this retreat, and it's limited. There's only 6 women and her, so it's limited.
Wow.
So we get lots of one-on-one attention. They also get group coaching. And we also have time to enjoy some of the sites that Bali has to offer, and just be able to spend time with one another. But women from all over the world are coming together in Bali. I can't wait.
Oh my God, it sounds really spectacular. I really kind of wish I was there. Well, maybe next year I'm going to be joining you. I don't know if it's always in Bali, is it?
It is. It's
Oh,
always in Bali.
okay. Well, I've been looking for an excuse to go to Bali, so that might just be it. Or maybe
Yes.
I'll be joining you and be one of those 6 women that get all this amazing coaching. So that's awesome. Well, I can't thank you enough. I mean, you are just a joy. I mean, your personality is infectious. I'm a little disappointed that your hair is more purple, but I can get over.
Me too. I am too. I'm ready for my hair appointment.
You can let your husband know that I even said something about it.
He will laugh. Yeah.
Well, I can see why people enjoy working with you. You bring a lot of laughter into place, and I can see that working with you would be an absolute joy. And gosh, you could do entrepreneurship a couple of ways. You could sit there in the inside of your own mind and freak out and being overwhelmed, or you could get yourself a coach and make sure that it's not so miserable and bounce your ideas off somebody, have somebody keep you on track and save your time, your energy, and your resources. I feel like it's a no-brainer.
Yes. Yes.
But it's been a pleasure. I have to say that I don't know why we waited so long to get you on the show, but I would say that, at some point in the future, because you're always moving and shaking, we're going to have you back on the show so we can see what you've been up to since you've been gone.
I would love that. And I cannot thank you enough. You are just such a light. And I am just so grateful to call you my friend, to call you my colleague. And you are out there doing amazing things in the world. And the world needs more of you. So I'm glad you're going to be on stage very, very soon.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Angie. I will be in touch with you. I'll touch base after your amazing trip, and then we will catch up. Thanks so much for being on Gloves Off. Bye.
Bye.
Well, I hope you guys really enjoyed that. Angie is just, I feel really blessed to have gotten to know her. So it was just so fun talking about all the things she's doing that are, contrary to what she should be doing. I love stories like that. And next week, I'm actually going to be interviewing Danielle Lindbergh. So she is actually a high school friend of mine, and she's in the tech space. And now, from the tech space, she is actually going into holistic wellness. So that's quite the transition. So we're going to get into that conversation next week on Gloves Off. And it's interesting. I know we were talking quite a bit about coaching today, and I was alluding to the fact that these things can change for not only coaches, but anybody starting their own business. I have transitioned from talking about leadership, entrepreneurship, and wanting to help healers and doctors. And finally, what I finally landed on, and what feels the most authentic to me, is that I want to help healers who want to transition into their own conscious business. I finally found the avenue that incorporates all the things that I want to do and help people with. So it's just interesting. The journey in life is an amazing thing. So I think it's important for all of us to remember that we don't have to know all the answers right at once or in the beginning. We just have to accept the evolution as it progresses. So have a wonderful rest of your Sunday. Thank you again for watching the show, and feel free to follow me at drkalpana.unbound on Instagram. I'm also on YouTube and Facebook, and we will see you next week on Gloves Off.